Welcome to a very special episode of Justice League Revisited. They're all special episodes, obviously, but this one is particularly special because I'm so excited that we have this guest joining us for the first time. Before we get to our guest, though, I'm your host, James Enstall, host of Geek to Me Radio. On the other side of the Zoom screen, in all of her sun-drenched glory, you can see the room radiating with light. Maybe it's her. Maybe it's not the sun radiating the light. But there she is, the other host of this podcast, Susan Eisenberg, the voice of Wonder Woman. How are you?
I'm well, and I'm excited to have our guest today because for two reasons. One, because he is legendary, and I can't wait to talk to him. And second, because I know how much you adore this person, and I can't wait to, listen to your conversation because I have a feeling I'm going to have very little to say. I mean, I will have stuff to say, but then when we go to a larger conversation, I think I may not. So you want to tell the kids who's on today?
So very rarely do I get nervous because I have people on my radio show all the time. I'm used to doing interviews now, but there are still a handful of people I get nervous. And just knowing we're going to have this guest on, I got nervous. First of all, it's a first-time guest. I want to make a good impression. I'm wearing my nice Batman t-shirt, as you can see. But we've got the one, the only, the legendary Paul Dini is on the show today talking this little piggy. Come on.
I know, right? Right? Look at us. Look at us booking the big guests, the big names.
It's incredible. This is going to be so much fun because, not only this episode, I feel like Susan and I talked about this. Obviously we had Dan Reba, the director, on, who's one of our favorite guests. He comes on all the time with such insightful knowledge. But it's always great to get the writer's perspective as well.
Always.
And to have a writer of Paul's caliber, it's just, this is a pinch me moment for me.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about, this little piggy, but I hope we will talk about other things as well, because when do you get the opportunity to talk to this guy?
Right.
It's not like he's at Comic-Cons all the time or, it feels like such a privilege to be able to sit down and have a conversation with him. So let's go grab him.
Well, before we get to him, let me just double check, because sometimes this is someone's first episode. So maybe you missed the last episode of this little piggy that we had with Dan Reba. So just to remind you of the cast of players we have in this, first of all, this is the 5th episode of the first season, written by our guest Paul Dini, directed by our friend Dan Reba. This has guest voiced in it Jack Carter as Sid, Chad Einbinder as the attendant, the father, come to find out, of Hannah Einbinder from Hacks, HBO. Jennifer Hale comes back. This time she is as Zatanna. We have Peter Honorati, I'm probably pronounced that incorrectly mainly because I couldn't read my own handwriting, as Buona Beast. We've got Rachel York as Cersei, and of course, Lorraine Newman as Medusa. Lorraine, obviously, Chad Einbinder. They helped produce Hannah Einbinder. I probably said that very awkwardly, as you can tell by my awkward arms that I'm thrusting out into the.
So in other words, you're saying they're her parents.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, they are indeed. And I have to tell you, sitting across from Lorraine Newman in a recording studio, like, shut up. It's so, talk about privileges. You just can't believe that she's across the room.
Gosh. I mean, what a cast.
Right?
What a cast. What a behind the scenes group. Like I said, the writer and the director on this are just, the fact that they were the ones, well, we'll ask Paul about that, about writing and directing the original Zatanna episode from Batman with Dan Reba. We'll ask about that in there. But yeah, to your point, should we get him?
Go get him. Well, let's have our intern get him.
Okay, Gary, could you put the Jolt Cola down, Gary? You've had enough. Yeah, no, right there is fine. Don't use a coaster, Gary. Come on, we're not savages. Okay, thank you. Yeah. All right, he's on his way. So let's welcome the man himself, Paul Dini. This is such an exciting treat for me to have you on. I'm sure Susan as well, but I don't want to speak for Susan. But it's very exciting. Thanks for doing the show.
My pleasure, James. Hi, Susan. Nice
Hi, Paul. James, I admire your restraint, because I was expecting you to say, like, the myth, the legend, Paul Dini, because I know how you feel about our guest today. I know that James he's a massive fan. I'm a fan as well, but James knows so much more about the industry than I do. And he's trying to be a cool cucumber, but I know inside he's very, very excited.
Great.
It's the 3 shots of Kahlua rum that I took before that's keeping me calm right now, Susan.
Whatever works.
Great.
Whatever
I didn't
works.
know we could indulge while we do this. I'll go get some Goslings and we'll have a good
perfect. Yeah, no FCC rules governing this little podcast, so we're fine.
Great.
But this is we've talked about this before. This episode that we're kind of covering, obviously, we'll spread out into some other things as well. This Little Piggy is a fan favorite. Susan and I have talked about since we started this podcast how we're so excited to get to Unlimited because we each have episodes in there which we love. So we're both fans of this particular one. And I love the fact that you are writing this, Dan Reba's directing this, because going back to the Batman animated series episode, Zatanna, that was the team on that, was you writing and Paul and Dan Reba directing.
Right. It was a lot of fun to revisit the character and that relationship with Batman. And, people always kind of hammer me on continuity and they say, is this in continuity? And I say, it is or it isn't. It is if you want it to be. It kind of is. I mean, because they make reference to their other relationship of knowing each other. And I think I had been playing with that a bit in the comics at that point when I was writing Detective Comics. In the first Zatanna appearance, we did not give her magical powers. We gave her mostly, she was an illusionist, like a Blackstone or a Doug Henning or something like that. But but there was always sort of like an undertone that she could be, and at the end she pulls a magical vanish that very strongly suggests she could have magical powers. And so we figured that came up and was dealt with at some point in between series, because they do, in one of the early Justice League episodes, Justice League Unlimited, they are shown, she's part of the group, and I don't think she'd be there if she didn't have actual, sorcery powers and things. So it's just something that came up and sort of integrated itself into the series. But it's always fun working with Dan. It's always fun seeing Dan socially and hanging out with him. And he's a great lover of this type of storytelling. And,
the comedy in this storytelling is so brilliant. And I give my hats off to you and to Dan, because not only is the script funny as hell, but the way it was directed, like I just love, there are so many instances where it made me laugh out loud, truly, because it was just done so well comedically. And Dan has been on this podcast, I can't tell you how many times. He's almost a third host at this point. But we talked to him about this episode, and I've talked to you about this episode because I don't think I've given an interview where I haven't talked. This interview's not brought up to me, or I don't bring it up. Right. And, every time Kevin and I appeared at something together, he would break into song and he would sing. And it's one of my favorites, and I'm hardly in it.
Well, that's why I have to apologize to you, because it's like, we have this great character stuff at the beginning, and at the end, you're kind of running around for your life as a pig. And, I felt like you don't get a much, Wonder Woman is certainly the focus of the story. She's the engine that drives the story. But unfortunately, we don't hear too much of your performance. But what we do hear is great. The opening where she's kind of chiding Batman about, I can take care of myself. There's no reason why we shouldn't be in a relationship.
And I can't tell you how many times that has been quoted. That whole scene verbatim gets quoted to me all the time, Paul. I'm not sure. Do you do Comic-Cons? Are you a Comic-Con guy?
Very rarely.
Very rarely.
I don't know. No. I mean, I may do a few in the future. But,
okay.
Up until now, I will go I'm appearing on a panel at San Diego Con this week, but I'm talking about Walt Kelly's Pogo comic strip. I'm a fan of this stuff. I'd rather not discuss my own stuff. I'd rather talk about things that I'm passionate about. But I do know the fans are out there. I'm incredibly grateful for them. I'm incredibly grateful that they continue to keep the show alive in their memories, and that they buy the new books when I put them out. So but I've read a little bit online, or people have forwarded me their opinions and compliments of the story, On Justice League, we didn't really have, or I wasn't working on the show regularly. I was kind of doing other things, and I was coming in occasionally to write episodes. And this is one of those instances where Dwayne McDuffie and Rich Vogel brought me in on this one. And so I wasn't part, if they had a regular writer's room, I don't think they really did that. I think they assigned the stories, or they worked a lot of them out internally. And so when Dwayne brought me in, it was like we worked out the beats and with him and with Rich Vogel, and we talked over the things we were going to do. And then the song came up, and there was some back and forth about what song fit the mood, and also realistically, what does Warner's have the rights to? Because music is a huge thing. I've always believed that music is the invisible power that really gives the cartoon its soul. It really carries the emotion and it really plays it up. I mean, that's the way it is with all the Disney movies. The orchestration and the songs themselves really make the picture very vibrant in your head. Mm-hmm. And if there are so many producers I've worked with who said, yeah, we have music. I have a buddy coming in on a Casio keyboard. He's got a boom, boom, dramatic thing and a for comedy. And that was not the case on the Warner Brothers shows, on any of them. We were blessed. I mean, really blessed to have, the Bernsteins and Bruce Broughton and, dynamic partners, everybody, Shirley Walker, everybody coming in, Christopher Carter doing, and Lolita doing wonderful music. And that was something that Warner's really understood early on, was you have to give it that quality. You have to pay for the music. The music really gives it its life. And so when it discovered that we had the song Am I Blue, that worked out perfect. And Kevin sang gorgeously. Kevin was always saying, I mean, I really think Batman should sing a little more in the show. and when we did Batman Beyond, we did
yes,
Out of the Past, we have him going to see The Legend of Batman, a musical. And that's something I always was very firm about, that in the future, when Bruce Wayne is no longer Batman and the villains of that era have taken on this sort of mythic, almost quaint quality to them, like the way we look back at Bonnie and Clyde or Jesse James as sort of romantic figures. So somebody would have been doing a Batman musical, although even though, they didn't know that Batman necessarily was Bruce Wayne, but he's sitting there watching it and going, oh, boy. But he was doing all the singing in there and parodying himself, and he did a great job. And I wish we could have done, more singing Batman, or Bruce Wayne joins a choral group or a theater group or something like that. He would have eaten that up.
Or just a mini series where he's undercover at the Iceberg Lounge, like he told, that's why I can sing. Just a mini series, right. That would have been brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, Bruce Wayne, community theater actor. That's really good there. These ideas come up like 30 years too late, unfortunately. So, but we have what we have, and I'm delighted that people remember the episode so fondly. And it really did kind of walk the line between being an all-out comedy episode or having some danger and some good old superhero action in it. But I like that. I like the fact that that a lot of the villains have a human side to them. Like Cersei is as fearsome as she is and as powerful as she is, she craves attention also. Yeah. And then she can be moved by what Bruce is doing. And I love that scene where she and Zatanna are kind of passing a hanky back and forth. Like suddenly they're not enemies. They're just two ladies enjoying the song. And they've discovered this wonderful thing about that Batman can do. So it was, it's good. So, and yet it all worked, and it all paid off well with the coda of Wonder Woman letting Batman know that she pretty much knew what was going on, or she heard about it later. Originally, the ending I wrote was much more comedic and kind of mean-spirited. That it was something like Batman saying, well, they'll never know what happened, or things will be kept secret, and then coming into the main conference room, and Zatanna is showing everybody him singing on a crystal ball or something, and everybody's kind of laughing. And in this way, it kept it intimate between the two of them, and it kept it a very, very nice moment that it deserved. And you don't want to have, Batman did reveal something deep inside himself, and that it should be appreciated. So that was a much better ending than the original, what I originally scripted.
It was perfect. And, what I'm so grateful for is it gave me that intimate moment, which were some of my favorites to do in the series, because, Meet Me at the Watchtower is great. But those quieter moments where I get to be Diana, they're so thrilling to play.
Yeah.
And I love that opening scene. I love the ending scene, but also I'm a strict vegetarian, and I have been for 30 years, maybe longer, 35 years. And so getting to be, it reminded me of Charlotte's Web. Like, it just made the piglets, she was so, I loved her. And seeing the bracelets on her, I couldn't with the bracelets. I just couldn't. And she was described as like kind of stuck up, and it was so meaningful. And then she lets all the pigs loose, and they all get to run away. And, as somebody who believes in animal rights, I was so into that. I was so into it. So even though I'm not in a lot of it, it's like still,
Wonder Woman's spirit pervades in every scene.
Yes.
And, that was fun. And it was fun coming up with a way to do that didn't really go straight out Looney Tunes, that it is, as an animal, but not, playing her like Petunia Pig or something like that. So it was really...
I know, Susan, I think I pointed out to you, Paul, have you seen all the figures they made from that gorgeous Hasbro line that they did nonstop figures? They've got a Batman figure packaged with a tiny little pig with bracelets. So they've even got a...
Yep. I did see that. And I have it somewhere. I have a big toy closet here.
Oh, nice.
I would expect you to.
In there somewhere, yeah. I've got all sorts of, there's a Muppet over there, and, some other stuff there.
Everybody we've interviewed so far, except for maybe a few of the actors, all the writers, they all have the closet, or in back of them, you can see so much of what they've collected.
Phil Morris has a huge collection that he's kind of been pointing out in the background of stuff, and it's insane.
That's right.
Man, I've got... and I can't even begin. There's a picture of Walt Disney and the Donald Duck marionette.
Oh, gosh.
There's everything behind me. So.
And to your point, too, about this being such the music involved, it's one of the things I remember thinking. I know we talked about this when we talked to Dan Reba about it, was just the orchestra, the orchestral pieces. It felt very much like old school Warner Brothers, like the old cartoons used to be. You could tell there was that care taken with the music, and the writing you had a lot of those funny moments that we almost would get from a classic Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck cartoon when Cersei's getting hit with the items as she's trying to monologue.
One of my favorite moments.
That's like
perfect.
Robin Hood Daffy, where he's trying to swing down. He keeps hitting tree after tree. That was going through my head when I was doing it. Let's do Robin Hood Daffy. Like, stop. Okay, stop. Going and going. Yeah, I love that. And anytime you can bring it in and kind of pay it off that way, I think the audience really enjoys it. And it's, it's reminding itself not to be too serious, not to take it too seriously. And also, Cersei has it coming. It's a hubris that gets her into the situation, and she deserves to have a table or two tossed out. So.
Rachel York as Cersei and Jennifer Hale as Zatanna, both brilliant. Just so damn good. Each of
and
them.
Lorraine Newman as
Lorraine Newman as Medusa.
Medusa, yeah. Everybody just knocked it out of the park with that one. It was just really, really good. But that's the joy of working on these shows, especially back then, is that we wouldn't necessarily go celebrity, but we go definitely to actors who could really add to to the characters that we were creating. And it was such fun to go in and be in the recording sessions on Superman, Batman. I don't think I did any Justice Leagues, but not until the later shows. But it was fun watching them, and they really got into it, and they had a great spirit of and spirit of fun about what they were doing.
We just had dynamic music. We've had dynamic music partners. We've had Christopher and Michael on twice, and we just had Lolita on because they're releasing a compilation of music. From Justice League, and so they were there to chat with us. We hadn't chatted with Lolita, but also to promote the album. You know, not the album, the
download release.
The download release.
Oh, right.
And they were talking about Lolita. We were talking about the orchestrations and being in those rooms with the orchestra. And
it was so wonderful when you go into the scoring stage. And they were recording. I was there when Shirley recorded the Superman theme, and it was an incredible moment. And then I'd stop in and listen to Tiny Toons or Animaniacs. Animaniacs had a huge score, and everything was so perfectly scored to character, and the action and everything. It really was like being back in the 1940s and 50s, where they would have a big orchestra playing for those cartoons. And unfortunately, in order to make something of quality like that, you have to spend a lot of money, and there are so few people now willing to or able to do that. And it's almost like at the time in the late 80s, early 90s, we, meaning everybody at Warner's, had to kind of relearn how to do that. And then once they relearned it and then was up and running, they could do that. I mean, that was one of the insistences that Steven Spielberg had on the early shows, is he wanted to make it sound as much like it sounded like the classic, Carl Stalling arrangements as possible, and give it that big, warm, exciting feel. And that really is what I think helps keep those shows eternal, is the beautiful music behind it.
Yeah. And Lolita was saying she was so young at the time, like she just thought, oh, puff, puff. They'll always have orchestrations. We'll always have a live orchestra. It was like, it was pinch me. I can't believe this is happening, but also, oh, this will always happen. This is how it's going to be. And, womp, womp. I mean, then the decade is over and things have changed hugely. And, but so lucky to have been a part of that. I mean, it was a golden age, for all of you. Batman the Animated Series, Superman the Animated Series. I mean, when you think back and to that era, what stands out the most for you from that time?
Oh, the people. It was just amazing working with terrific people, and it was all, to some degree, that sort of production had been done before, but it hadn't been done by us. Mm-hmm. And so I have to go back to 1989, which was really the start of Warner Brothers animation as it existed, and in the modern time. And I'd say for about 9 or 10 years before then, most everybody who would do those shows was just getting into animation around 1980 or 81. And they were bringing with them a lot of enthusiasm. So you had people, men and women in their early 20s, who knew the lore of cartoons and knew how wonderful they could be. And for 9 or 10 years, everybody was kind of like, it's like in Ben-Hur, everybody's kind of rowing the boat for the Imperial galley, because you can't really do much of anything. You're just, there's somebody pounding with the drums, and you're drawing Saturday morning cartoons, and you're trying to inject what little bit of fun and excitement you can get in there. And you're doing things largely by rote, because the networks are buying the shows, and they're buying old familiar properties that you're trying to, inject a little bit of fun in. But, and over at a place like Disney, they're still trying to kind of going in circles, trying to do old stuff and trying to do new stuff. And there hadn't been really a resurgence in animation for a long time. Then little by little, you had a few independent films, a few music videos that seemed to break out of that mold. And that seemed to be getting people excited again. Then the big thing, I think, there were a couple of big things at Disney. One was The Little Mermaid, which brought back the classic Disney fantasy fairy tale storytelling, and then Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which was born out of the love of classic cartoons. Robert Zemeckis and Steven Spielberg and the animators, they just said, okay, it's our chance to do something fun again. They're not even doing Bugs Bunny cartoons at Warner Brothers, but let's make our Bugs Bunny cartoon. Let's make our Tom and Jerry. Let's do something with that great spirit of animation. And that really, because that was such a hit and that took people by surprise, and because not everybody remembers, but at the time, Roger Rabbit kind of skewed a bit older than the Disney stuff. It had a little bit more of an adult feel, a little bit more of a raw sensibility, but still appropriate for the kids. But it was just a little more extreme in some ways. That made people remember, hey, I really would like to see cartoons again. And all credit here must go to Steven Spielberg, because he wanted that to happen. And he went to Warner Brothers and said, I would love to redo or revisit Looney Tunes. And for a while, they worked back and forth on what that was going to be. And then they eventually settled on Tiny Toons and the idea that the classic cartoon characters like Daffy and Bugs and Elmer are still around, and they're teaching their tricks to new characters who aren't the sons and daughters of the Looney Tunes, but they're, similar type characters. And that gave a lot of people the ability to think like, okay, let's do classic cartoons. Let's do something funny. Let's draw from our own experiences and make something funny out of that. And that was, a lot of the writers brought in were improv comics and comedians who would use their own personal experiences to create characters that they would perform on stage, or for stand-up bits, or for some of their own writing. So it was a real mix of people who were very versed in animation and cartoons with a performer mentality. And everybody was there out of a love for that kind of cartooning. And that's really what started it off. And the fact that we were able to play with classic intellectual property, such as the Looney Tunes, such as the DC character, and many more, gave it a life. And at that point, we were, I would say, in our early to mid 30s, and then we were ready for our shot. Okay, now we have our turn at bat. Now we can create some stuff finally, and that's not the usual, Saturday morning stuff that we kind of had to work on before. We can make some choices and do some fun things and create some stuff. And we had the backing of Warner Brothers and of Amblin and of a number of other people who were just saying, go out. Oh, and Fox Kids at that point, they were just saying, go out and do your best. And that was really important. And that, you could never sell a show like Animaniacs or Pinky and the Brain back in the days of when the networks were running Saturday morning TV. It's like, how do you go in and explain it? It's like, oh, they're two genetically engineered mice who want to take over the world. Okay, are they babies? Are they baby versions of classic characters? Or is there cereal with them on it? No, it's a new creation. They wouldn't have bought it. But the fact that there was this sort of wonderful hodgepodge of characters all thrown together that became Animaniacs, that made all those characters classic. You give a cartoonist a chance, he or she will give you something wonderful. And then that continued on with Nickelodeon, with the shows they were doing, and a few years later with Cartoon Network, where suddenly it's just cartoonists coming up with a fun idea, getting them to sign off on it internally. And when you have that, you always have something good. And that's where it came from. And
so when you say you were finally given your shot, like when you were finally like, okay, you're in your, what were like a few of the things you were like, man, when I get my at bat, there are like a few things I can't wait to do. What were your things like that you brought, Paul Dini brought to the table?
Well, I mean, I've always loved Looney Tunes, and I loved working, to me was getting the chance to bring new characters and play them off of old characters like Bugs and Daffy. It's a great thing to be able to kind of to work with those characters. It's like working with a big star. I've always wanted to work with whoever your favorite Groucho Marx or Tom Cruise or John Wayne, whoever you loved. Suddenly you have a chance to work with them because these characters are eternal and they go into hibernation for a long time and then when they come out and you have a chance to work with them, you want to give it your A game. And with Batman, I didn't want to do the Saturday morning versions of Batman that had been done before. I wanted to get in and work with really cool, twisted characters like the Joker and even Batman himself, who's kind of a nutcase. And in the comics at that time, in the late '80s, like when the rise of Frank Miller's Dark Knight and stories like that, they were treating Batman as a deeply conflicted, dark character. And how far can we go with that? How far can we make Gotham City a character? And it was very fun being in that world and kind of charting the destiny of those characters throughout that. So, that was a big thrill for me. And I tried to bring in as much creativity and originality and yet reverence for the original material into all my stories.
The first one you wrote, right? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Just judging from the outcome, Paul, I'd say, well done.
Oh, thank you.
Because we're still talking about it all these years.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people felt the same way. I know that Eric Radomski and Bruce Timm and Kevin Altieri and Dan and Alan Burnett all felt the same way, that this is a chance. Batman is not our character, but this can be our version of him. This is the Warner Animation Crew's version of Batman, and it's just as distinctive as the Denny O'Neil, Neil Adams, or the Frank Miller. It's our turn literally at bat, and this is our what we're doing.
And the twist that you gave, because I've always pointed out there was just someone posted on Twitter a couple of days ago, maybe last week, they said, "What's your favorite Batman animated series episode?" Without hesitation, I always say Heart of Ice. Because that redefined Mr. Freeze completely going forward. Do you happen to remember? I'm curious because sometimes they'll get in different production order. Was Heart of Ice the first Batman script you worked on, or was that just the one that came out first in the production?
That was the first one I worked on, and I wasn't even there anymore. I'd kind of taken time off. I'd left. My deal had been up, and I was freelancing. So I wrote Heart of Ice, and then I wrote Joker's Favor, and then I got about halfway through I guess the next one was the Mad Hatter episode. Then I went back, and they said, we want you on staff. And so, I re-upped with them. And but with Heart of Ice, I had talked to Bruce Timm about it, and we saw in Mr. Freeze, let's not play him as a grandstanding kind of jokey weirdo. Let's do something with him that's kind of evocative of a Edgar Allan Poe or a Hammer horror film or something like that. Let's give him, let's make him a dark soul or give him a dark, almost horrific past. And Bruce is a tremendous horror fan. And I think we had discussed at one point some Vincent Price movies like Theater of Blood or Dr. Phibes, where somebody is wronged and then they come back for revenge. And then I had in my head the image of a man sitting by himself in an ice cold room and his tears just turning to snow and flying up in front of his face. You don't see him cry. You just see the flurry in front of his eyes. And even though we ultimately didn't do that image, that was what I had in my mind when I started writing. It's like, that's a great end image. How do you get there? And so I wrote the ending first, and then I constructed everything else around it. There was also a chance to tell a little bit of a story about, corporate America. Corporate America is always putting a friendly face out. We're the family company. We're the, a company of friends. And it's like, no, if this thing's costing us money, shut it down. Hell with this guy. Hell with this nut. Last one we need is to get another lawsuit, get rid of him. And to play with that, and yet in kind of bite-sized terms without getting, and completely technical about it. People did get it, and kids did get it watching it, that this was a guy who'd been wronged, who was trying to save his wife, and who suffered for it. And you could understand why that had turned him literally cold, both externally and internally. And I've always felt like if you've got a character who is that cold, who is that driven in what he's doing, he's got to have an Achilles heel. He's got a tiny bit of warmth still left in him. So how do you fan that into a fire again? So that was my thinking with Mr. Freeze.
And then having him come back in Batman Beyond, and Terry's the one kind of saying, I feel bad for the guy. He's just a guy trying to get his house in order. And Kevin delivers that great line. It's a cold wind that blows through that house, because Batman's had experience with Mr. Freeze, and this is mostly all new to Terry, and that dynamic is one of the things that made that series work so well. But that episode in particular just kind of put an underscore on what a great, how Mr. Freeze is totally reinvented from, the 60s. He's not Otto Preminger anymore.
No, he's not. No, and I think to me that makes a great villain. And I've often said that through these guys have little windows into their soul where you can see them as human beings. You can certainly see that with Pamela Isley and with Harleen Quinzel and Jervis Tetch and Harvey Dent, of course. But the only one that breaks the rules is the Joker. I don't think he has that. I think he's more of a restless, chaotic soul than anything, a spirit. And I think if you saw that human side in him, if he had one, I think the rest, he suddenly wouldn't play very well. You can't take that away from him. So, or I don't think it was ever there to begin with. I'm writing a story about his early days, and it's interesting to deal with somebody in a story like this. You're telling a story about redemption, and there is no redemption in him, because I don't think there ever was. There was never anything that could be, that there are other things that matter to him, and ultimately that's what the story is about. But he doesn't have a desire to be like everybody else. You get the desire that if they had their way, Two-Face or Poison Ivy would love to go back to being, a full human version of themselves with the world the way they wanted it. But with Joker, he just kind of exists in this heavily agitated, chaotic state.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I never went and saw the Joker movie, because I as soon as they announced it, I'm like, oh, this is a guy who doesn't need his origin story. The reason he works is because we don't have an insight into what made him, and that's why I just bristled when they made that announcement. But I did love they gave a little bit. Legends of the Dark Knight did a series in that comic book anthology where they kind of showed a little bit of his backstory. Obviously, we got a little bit of it in Killing Joke, but that's a glimpse. And even like Heath Ledger says, he gives 3 different origins for wondering how I got these scars. And I love the fact that there's always that, is this really what happened? Kind of a mystery to the Joker's characters. I cannot wait to see what you've, what the stories you're writing.
Yeah, I can't talk a lot about it.
Sure.
But it'll, in the not too distant future. And it is interesting. There is something that in Joker that he seems to want to bring you into everything. He's a very engaging character. He's a very charismatic character, and yet that's his shtick. In one of the comics I was writing a long time back, Bruce is talking to his wards, or they're talking about the Joker as a person, and they say, and Bruce thinks of him, he's like a comedian. A comedian walks on stage and he will look around the audience and find somebody who is like embarrassed or doesn't want to be in the audience participation seat, and he'll go right for him. And Joker is like that when he goes into a situation. Who's scared of him the most? That guy? That's my new best friend. And I'm going to bring him up and have fun with him until he dies. And that's what kind of keeps him going. Batman's the only guy who's never afraid of him. He's the only guy who won't laugh at him. He's the only guy strong enough to take him down, and that to him is the ultimate challenge. He hates him, he loves him, he wants to destroy him, he wants him around. It's it just keeps Joker in this constant state of agitation.
I don't want this to be totally Batman, because I know our Justice League fans, but like, you guys aren't talking much about the episode. But
actually, here's something I can bring in that kind of weaves the two back together.
Sure,
I had actually written a scene in this Little Piggy where the Joker appears, and people liked it, and then Bruce said, "No, it's too distracting. Cut it out." And I said, "Okay," but I wanted you to read it. So basically, it's a scene of where Batman has Wonder Pig, and he's taking her out of the theater, and he's headed down the alley toward, to the Batmobile, and we cut to Joker and Harley and the gang. They're breaking into some place, and Joker's saying, "Okay, we're going to go in. We're going to do this. We're going to do that." And then when Batman comes, and then they see him walking by, talking to this pig, and Batman doesn't even. And it's like, "It'll be okay. I know a place where we can get you help." And they kind of watch this from like half a block away, and the gang looks at Joker and he goes, "Nope, that's it. We're done. We're done. No, I can't compete with whatever that was." It's like, let's go. No, not tonight. It's just the absurdity of what Joker was doing is there's Batman talking to a pig. I don't know why. I don't want to know, but let's go. And it's like funny, but no, it's like, okay, I just want, it was one of those things occasionally you just write it and put it in there because it's not going to get, it's not going to go, but it's just for the amusement of the crew who's reading it. And if it actually makes it into storyboard, then you can use your better judgment. Do we really want to do this? No, let's take it out. Or if it works, it works. Fine.
That was going to be my next question is, did they do storyboards for it? Because those would be gold to see.
I don't believe so. I think my first draft went in, and it was one of the things I sort of knew they were going to boot out. I just wanted to put it in there for fun. And I think Bruce's attitude was like, yeah, it's funny, but it's like, we don't want to, pay more actors to come in on this. And it derails the point of the story. And there are times you have to kind of say, okay, we're not doing that because you don't want that to derail the audience's attention and taking it away from this. And there was enough funny stuff and in the script already. So it was just sort of, gilding the lily in that case. So.
But James, so what were you going to ask about? Because I do appreciate that the fans want to hear about the episode, but I also appreciate the fact that we're talking to Paul Dini, and I want you to be able to ask him because most of the fans won't be able to have this opportunity to sit down on a podcast with Paul, and so think about all the fans that you're asking these questions for. Not to put too much pressure on you, James, but you ask away.
I mean, well,
ask away anything.
I guess I'm now the nerd spokesman for
yes,
all
you
the
are. Yes, you are.
I one of my favorite Batman animated series episodes. I mentioned Heart of Ice is easily my hands down favorite, but I gotta ask about Almost Got Him because that's just such a fun episode and very much. How we talked about with Justice League, how there are some heavy episodes, like we do something fun like kid stuff and immediately go into Hawk and Dove. It's like, woof. They're kind of, but Almost Got Him was just such a great episode. And the twist at the end, spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen this now 30 years on, but, it's not really Killer Croc, it's Batman. What was do you remember the brainstorming session when you were writing that episode out or how that all fleshed out?
It just seemed like it was fun to do. Like the villains are all together and they're talking. And if anything, I'll throw in a weird reference. It was kind of inspired by a Rudyard Kipling story from the Jungle Books, from the second Jungle Book. There's one where there's and they actually use this in Disney's live action version of the movie, where all the animals are together at the watering hole. And in the movie and in the book, there's a drought. And so you have Baloo and Bagheera and Mowgli drinking side by side with Shere Khan and Hathi the elephant. And they all have to be on good manners because this is the one place they can it's the one source of water. And it's the one place they kind of have to get along in order to, survive. So I was thinking there was a little bit of that in Almost Got Him, the idea of all these very dangerous characters sitting down together. To what degree do they know each other? To what degree do they respect or, disdain each other? And yet, for whatever reason, they're in this bar, and they all kind of come together under this guise of like, okay, we're playing poker. No one reach for a gun. Ivy, I know you hate Two-Face and Two-Face and vice versa, but right now we're doing this and we're telling stories about Batman, and it just sort of I don't think they do that often. I think they did it this night, when they just happened to be, in the same place. And they were, and they're trying to one up each other by telling, these whoppers. And that's the other thing is, like, you don't really know if any of these stories are true because all these guys lie.
Right.
So although obviously Joker's story is true, and that's why Batman is there in disguise in order to find out what he can and to get the information. He can't just beat it out of him. He has to know what happened to Catwoman, where is she being held, and and that's why he's there heavily in disguise, and the others are telling their stories about them. There's probably an element of truth to all of them. I mean, he does have the giant penny. He did get that from Two-Face that night. And it was also a chance just to do classic Batman bits without a big story with it. We want to know, we want to see the big penny. We want to do, the Two-Face flipping the big coin story. We want Penguin, with trained birds or using birds to attack Batman. We want all these, things that these are snippets of episodes that ring true to each of the characters telling the story. But the framework is they're all kind of there under a flag of truce and telling these stories, and it gave the audience and the fans a lot in terms of the villains were written pretty close to the way you expect to see them in a Batman comic, and Batman himself is on character even to the very end with the little coda between him and Catwoman. To me, that was just sort of everybody's just doing what you expect them to do in a Batman story, and maybe the next one will go more off base with either a stranger villain or a more twisted story. So it was just it's like right Batman episode. Okay, well, here's a standard Batman episode, but it was fun, and we got all the main heavy hitters into it pretty much.
Yeah, I was reminded of the Batman arc. It's a 4 issue run. I think it's like 294 to 297 maybe, where it's got that classic cover. They're all standing over Batman's grave saying to think I killed him. And I think
there's that.
Yeah, so that's why I kind of got shades of that, which I loved, obviously, that 4-part series.
And then there's also that great issue where it's Riddler, Penguin, and Joker's turning over a huge book. Now we'll find all the secrets on Batman.
Yeah.
So a lot of that filtered into it, like characters meeting under a truce and telling stories and to think that I killed him. All that just sort of filters in.
Right.
That's the thing about the show is that we all speak that language. And there was nobody really had to be brought up to speed on that because this is all stuff that we grew up with. It was part of our childhood that we were just, reworking and presenting again. But if I would say to Bruce, let's do, something along the lines of this cover, he would know exactly what I was talking about. Alan Burnett, knew about that also. The directors, of course. And also when you walk through our floor where we had all the artwork pinned up for Batman, we'd have different, Animaniacs is like one floor above us. We're the Batman floor, and there are various other parts of the studio and their different shows. But the walls were festooned with old classic detective and Batman covers and bits of the artwork pinned up and things like that. And so we really knew what to draw from in order to evoke those feelings and kind of make it our own. So for Batman and Superman, we had tons of Jack Kirby artwork up on the wall because we very much wanted to go to the Kirby's Fourth World and pull from that, because we looked at Superman's Rogues Gallery and you have Bizarro and you have Luthor and a few others, but when Kirby kind of fused Superman with where he was going with the New Gods, there was a lot of potential there. And I think for whatever reason, they didn't really he wasn't able to maximize it at the time. So we were able to spend a lot more time there and use some of his ideas and his concepts and maybe flesh them out while trying in our way to stay true to what he was trying to do there. And it put Superman on a different arena and gave him some really great adversaries to fight against.
Absolutely. My gosh. And we could go on and on. We'll probably keep Paul for the next 5 hours. For those of you listening, this is the extended cut.
Oh, some more. That's fun.
But I'm curious because we talked about all the characters and everything like that, and we asked Dan Reba, and he wasn't quite sure how it unfolded, but we get the characters. We do get when Batman says, let's keep the circle tight on this one. He doesn't want the whole league finding out.
Right.
Were there certain thoughts behind, okay, we're going to use Elongated Man, we're going to use Wanna Beast. Were there certain reasons why certain characters were picked for those little cameos we saw of them all looking for Wonder Pig?
Well, in a weird way, that kind of goes back to the ending that we lost. He didn't want everybody to know because he didn't want to be made fun of. It's pretty silly, but also I think he wanted the circle rather small because we got to do this quickly, and if we have everybody spread out and we inform a lot of people, that could get in the way of the mission. And these people these heroes have the best shot of doing it and helping, and he was right about that. So that's where that came from.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was just like Red Tornado and everything. I was kind of wondering. Obviously, Ralph is a detective, so Elongated Man made sense. I was just curious if there was any rhyme or reason to the other certain characters that were picked.
It was mostly that, and also the fact that you don't want Black Canary going. I shouldn't laugh, but I will. That sort of thing. But it was pretty much that reason.
And the lines we had too, we got such great lines, and Lorraine Newman delivering, "Tell her I want my curling iron back." The comedy in this was just, were there certain lines that once you found out who was cast, did you go back and tweak anything? It's like, oh, we've got Lorraine Newman for this. Well, let me add something in, or was the script pretty much set before the cast was locked in?
I think the script was set. I didn't go to the recording on this one. It was, and we brought in Lorraine a lot of times as a featured player. And when you've got her coming in, you just know she's going to hit it out of the park. Mm-hmm. It was nothing. I don't think I rewrote anything for anybody, but I rarely do that. Occasionally, when Mark comes in and does a Joker, like if I've got a Joker story, I'll write to him. Like what I know he likes and what he liked, certain deliveries, and I know that I can give him a very macabre, twisted thing that is like funny, but it also is very dire sounding, and I know he'll know how to make the most of that. And I can also throw in references to old comedians, and he picks up those right away. And that's kind of a theory that I have about the Joker, is that in his dialogue, it's peppered with a lot of comedic byplay or catchphrases from other comedians, because he isn't just a thief of things like money, he's a thief of gags. And so if he heard, a comedian had a great gag, he would just steal it and use it as his own. And Mark you will always know where I plucked a line from, and he'll know how to play it. So it's always fun working with him. Occasionally, like I would get a line in my head, oh, I know how Kevin's going to read that, or you can kind of tailor it a little bit. But very, very rarely, would I rewrite something in the booth.
Well, wrap it up here, because I don't want to overstay our welcome. We'll wrap it up. We had some listener questions come in. One of our fans, Anthony Alvarado, asked, Paul and Susan, do you have a favorite memory from creating this episode? We'll start with Paul.
I have to say it was sitting with Dwayne and Rich and just blocking it out, and coming up with ideas that, I was writing them all down, and I'd say, oh, this will be fun, and let's do this. And it's so much fun. Like I said, everybody speaks the same language.
Yeah.
That when you're in there, nobody asks a question, or nobody says, oh, that I don't understand that's not going to work. Let's not do this. Everybody is in sync with what we're doing. And the fact that, we had the song "Am I Blue," that was great. I think that was on a list of potential songs that we had, and then Dwayne said, "Yeah, we're going to go with "Am I Blue," and I'm saying, "Okay, I know how to write that." Write, toward Batman performing that, and I played a version of the song when I was writing it. We didn't have Kevin's recording of it, but I said, "Oh, there could be some business here." And there, when he did record it, it was so phenomenally good. Yeah.
Susan, did you have a favorite memory from this one?
I'd have to say that just having that whole scene, those scenes, it wasn't a line or two. which you usually had. You could really flesh out the whole scene with somebody, and I loved that, having that with Kevin, and being able to do that, and also at the end, just having that scene where we're walking through the watchtower, and I know that that he did that, and for me, and I just remember feeling so lucky that I got to have those scenes, because when you're a part of an ensemble, especially, of 7 people, and also then Unlimited, which is like, everybody under the sun is there, to just have the luxury of a scene, like I said, and it's one of my favorite episodes to be associated with, because I just enjoy it so much as a viewer. I just get such a kick out of it.
Yeah.
So at the time, I just remember being like giddy that I got to say all those, words with Kev. And then, now that I'm looking back all these years later, and I've watched it so many times now, since we talked to Dan, and now we're talking to you, Paul, just like that I'm associated with something that the fans embrace and that I embrace. I just feel so fortunate.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, there are moments when I'm writing a story and I'm just, kind of giggling with I get to do this,
Yeah.
And I get to put this out, and I know that there are people who are a lot of people are gonna like it, and some are just gonna say, oh, yeah, I watched it, but I don't feel anything one way or another. But there are people who are going to be in sync with what we're doing, with our versions of these characters in particular.
Yes.
That makes it special. I wish it happened more often. I wish that we could, like this was ongoing. But the nature of the beast is that you'll have a show like Family Guys that'll be running, long after we're gone, but with new episodes. But these the superhero shows, and the ones that are essentially, everybody says they're kid shows, but they're the ones that adults wind up watching too. Like, I had a guy stop me on the street, a neighbor of mine, pulled his car to a stop, and he says, "Hey, I didn't really know him. I'd met him once or twice." And he said, "Do you write Animaniacs?" And I said, "No, not really. That wasn't really my show, but a little bit." And he goes, "Well, I got to tell you, my kids and I love this show." And then he went on at length about an episode that he felt was the funniest episode ever put on TV. And I said, "Look, I'm really good pals with all the other writers on the show. I'll let them know, and thank you very much." But the fact that he would actually stop and recite gags verbatim, that
Paul.
these shows do
Paul.
Have an identity far beyond ours, and you love that. I have a friend who writes on Seinfeld. People are always going, they're always reminding him of jokes that he's done on Seinfeld. These are the shows that matter to people, and it's nice to know that as far as animation goes, there are a few that really pop and that keep going, and that people remember, and it's gratifying to be a part of them. And
it's very comforting. It's comforting for people to watch things over and over and over again. Sure. When they know the show, they know the outcome, and I think especially in like more troubling times, people cling to those memories. And sure. It's how many times have I been told that I was part of somebody's childhood, and that means you as well. If I was part of it, you were part of it. You were there long before I was with Batman the Animated Series.
I mean, there's we're in the middle of this, and we'll do a show for like 3 years, and then it's over, and that's that, and you never do it again. But it really does take on the aura of like a children's book. And I mean, you get older, and then you pull down the Wind in the Willows, or read a chapter, or Harriet the Spy, or something like that, and you love revisiting that with it, that has the same feel. I mean, at one point during Batman Beyond, Bruce Timm and I started reading all the James Bond novels that we read when we were kids, and it was sort of it's nice to experience that again. And I think people feel the same way when they go back and they watch an old show, an old like a Looney Tune or Batman or Justice League or something, that it pinpoints you to a part of to a time in your life.
Yeah.
And it brings back a good memory, like an old song or something.
Yes.
It's unfortunate that, these shows do have such a quick life, 65 and done. The prevailing logic is, if this was on prime time and it was like The Simpsons, we do it year after year. It's like, well, why not? It's like, and now with streaming, animators come up to me and they'll tell me about a show they did, and it's already gone, because they did 10 episodes and
it's off.
Streaming, or it's just it passes without even being seen. But
well, personally, I think, and the fans know this. I mean, it's heartbreaking to me that they never reunited us in another show. Like, I don't even mean like another series, but in even a movie. They did so many direct to video movies, and the seven of us would have so happily been, reunited. But alas, the powers that be, we have no control over what happens.
No, I mean, I can't tell you. People have come to me and they've said, can you go with us into Warner Brothers? And in some cases, these have been filmmakers. These have been people who've created very very well known TV series, and they say, well, we're fans of this. We'd love to work with you on a direct to video movie. We know this guy over at Warner. I'm saying, you just won't get it started. It just it's not going to happen. I'm sorry, but they have this, the way they do things, and in many cases, they're not even responsible for the decisions they make. They're wholly, everything. All the decisions are made by people above them, and there are reasons for doing things and reasons not for doing things. And only 20 years later, it's like, God, we should have done more of that. Yeah, but you didn't.
Yeah, and we know that this character, all these characters will live on. That we've got, obviously it went into Batman Brave and the Bold. I thoroughly enjoyed the Batman with him when he got Batgirl first, the Jackie Chan style animation. I think that's terribly underrated. But yeah, these characters, and obviously, like we mentioned, just the brief snapshot that I gave of some of the ones you've done, you've left an indelible stamp on Batman for sure. A lot of these characters in general for Justice League and the DC world. Yeah. So since I'm speaking for the nerds, Paul Dini, thank you. It's absolutely incredible what you've done and what you continue to do.
Thank you very much. I just enjoy, I have as much fun as I can with what I'm doing, and who knows what the future will bring. It's just we just have to wait and see.
Well, if your future involves Comic-Cons, get ready for a lot of people to storm your table and tell you their memories and share everything with you, because you have so many fans out there, Paul.
Okay, thank you. Well, that's good to know, and you do too. I mean, absolutely.
But I go to Comic-Cons. You have to put that on your calendar and join me at a few of these.
All right.
People would lose their minds if you were coming
to there. And it's sort of like, people would stop by the table. Oh, yeah, I didn't know you'd be here today. Okay, well, bye.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's a missed opportunity on their end. I know you mentioned the story you've got coming up. If people want to keep up with you, I've seen, obviously, I follow you on Twitter. You're very active there. Any place else people can watch out for you social media-wise?
I'm on Facebook. I do have a website that's currently undergoing renovation. I haven't put anything new up there since like April. I'm still trying to figure out. We've had some technical issues with my coming up with the familiarity of how the site is operated, but there it is pauldini.com, and there is some content up there, but I want to move what I'm doing for Facebook onto this one. I just have to work with the designer of the site to make sure I can do that a little easier. I've actually got a meeting with him in about 20 minutes. So.
Oh, well done. Okay.
Well, I'm going to stop the recording. Don't leave just yet, Paul, but I'm going to stop the recording. So I just want to say thank you for being part of this, and hopefully we can do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. It'd be fun.
Thank you, Paul. It means the world to both of us. It really does. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you. It was tremendous.
Wow. That was a big one. I'm shaking a little bit because I was like, I had little jittery nerves the whole time. We just had Paul Dini on.
I know. You and I talked about it because we really wanted him to be on the show. And I mean, I wanted him to be on the show because we're telling a story and he's a central figure to the story. But I also wanted him to be on the show because I know how much of a fan you are. And I loved just being, like I said to you, a spectator. I was a spectator to this brilliant conversation that you guys had, and it made me so happy. I mean, I was beaming from ear to ear. So I'm thrilled that he did that. I mean, he was a lovely guest, and I so appreciate him coming on.
And just versatile as far as the writing goes. He just switches effortlessly, it seems like, from TV. And he mentioned that run of Detective Comics that he was doing where he fleshed out. And I can, in my mind, immediately went to those gorgeous black and white covers with Zatanna on the crystal ball and Batman's in the crystal ball. Just these incredible covers. The stories that he wrote for that entire run on Detective Comics are just absolutely outstanding. So, I can't believe we had that kind of conversation. It was brilliant.
You had that conversation with him, which I love. I love you got to ask all those great nerdy, geeky questions. Geek to Me Radio.
Yeah, we had good questions. Like I said, we got to Anthony's. I know TC, you had a 3-parter, which we answered 2 of those 3 parts about, how are the supporting characters who appeared? Were they selected? Which characters were selected from the Justice League Unlimited? Do you have a favorite? So we kind of mentioned some of those. I know, Michael, you'd asked about the episode. You said it's perfection, and were there plans to further the relationship with Bruce and Diana? I didn't ask that question simply because Paul had mentioned he was brought in, and like we talked with James DeMatteis, they were bringing writers in to kind of flesh out the broad scopes that Dwayne and everyone had kind of written. So I don't know if Paul would have had the input, and I didn't want to quite put him on the spot there. That's why I didn't ask your question, Michael, specifically. So don't think we didn't see your question. We did. It just wasn't quite in the wheelhouse that I felt Paul could have comfortably answered.
It's so funny to think of him as a freelancer.
I know.
It just feels weird in a way that he would come in and do an episode and then go. Like, how do you let him walk out that door? I mean, granted, you have Dwayne and you have all these talented people, and they did a lot of freelance work that, for Unlimited, which is great. I mean,
right. We saw Gail Simone come in, and what you said, James DeMatteis, and Henry Gilroy, who we've talked to now, has come in. So yeah, I mean, that's the quality of writing was great, and you could argue that each one of those people probably could have been made a staff writer,
100%, or running their own show. I mean, my God,
it would have been an overflow of an embarrassment of riches, I think is the term.
Yes, indeed. Yes, thank you.
But yeah, so that's our second go at This Little Piggy.
And we're done, right? We're done with This Little Piggy. We're not doing a 3rd episode, are we?
I think we've covered it.
I think we have.
Yeah, we don't want to beat a dead pig.
Big
horse.
No.
All right, sorry about that.
Let's move
folks.
on.
Sorry.
Let's move on.
Gosh, I should have been like George Costanza and gone out on a high note. Just left it. That's my time, folks. Good night.
It's not too late. It's not too late. We're not done yet.
This is true. We can still have that high note moment. Who knows?
Yes.
But deepest thanks to Paul Dini. That was absolutely incredible, and hopefully we can get him back on here for another episode, and hopefully we get him on my show, because I've got so many other questions. He did He-Man. He did G.I. Joe. He did the Ewoks animated series, which I devoured as a kid watching that show. So, and now it's back on Disney Plus, which to his point, it's a comfort thing. I was watching stuff. I'm like, Ewoks. And I watched 2 or 3 episodes of Ewoks on Disney Plus just because it's kind of like, that's my childhood.
Right. And so I think I really look forward to him being on I hope he does your radio show, because that would be brilliant if you could just have him for the hour.
Yeah.
And ask all your questions that you didn't get to ask during this. I mean, I think I asked everything I wanted to, maybe 1 or 2 things that I we just didn't have time. But we didn't want to take advantage. And if I may, we didn't want to be, a piggy about it.
That's true. Very good.
Right?
See, I see what you did there. See, that's a high note right there.
Right?
That's a high note. Good for you.
Thanks.
If people want to find out more about Susan Eisenberg, and I know you mentioned during the conversation the conventions you've got, where would people find information like that, Susan?
Oh, interesting. Thank you for asking. SusanEisenbergVoice.com is the website. And the most of the time I'm hanging out at Blue Sky and on Instagram. So you can find me there. Susan Eisenberg 1, the number 1, and the same at both places. So yeah, come say hello.
Yes, and if you are interested at all in what I do, it's a live radio show, like we kind of mentioned in the in this episode, where we go live every Sunday night, 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. Geek to Me Radio. You can stream it online. So just if you're not in the broadcast range of the greater St. Louis metropolitan area, you can watch us on YouTube and on Facebook.com/GeekMeRadio. I'm on social media, usually on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and Facebook, Geek to Me Radio. on all those platforms as well. This episode will have already aired by the time, but I'm doing a bunch of conventions. I'm doing one in Chattanooga the first weekend of August. I'm in Terrificon the second weekend of August. GalaxyCon St. Louis will be coming through here in September. So if you're at any of those conventions, look for me walking around like a crazy person with my Sony handheld recorder, getting those interviews that I get so much great content from my radio show from these conventions, and they're always so much fun to hobnob with my fellow nerds. So if you see me, say hi. I might have a Geek to Me radio sticker or something like that for you.
I like that little move. I mean, the fans can't see it, but you did that little like thing with your shoulders right there.
A little
like
shoulder bump, see?
I know.
We're going to ankle it out of here. I'm a 1920s actor, see? My transatlantic accent's coming through.
I love it. I love it. Well, listen, kids, do us a favor. Please subscribe to the podcast. Go to the link to our Patreon. We're really excited that we've done that, and we set up a Patreon. And thank you for those of you who have subscribed to it, and also for the people who sent in questions today and did all that. We so appreciate it. And leave a review. When you subscribe to our podcast, because that lets people know. That lets us know, frankly, what you think of the show. Yeah. If you have any constructive criticism, we want to hear it, ish. But please just let us know. And people have written to me on my website, so I appreciate that. I do read them, and thank you for doing that. And that's another one in the can, my friend. And we thank you for joining us. Please stay tuned, because the conversation will continue.